Starting a conversation about grief at Christmas may not feel the most natural thing to do. It is, after all, the season to be jolly. However, if your friend is grieving, you need to start the conversation, because the last thing we want is them feeling extra lonely because they've been abandoned by people who just don't know what to say. In this video, I'm going to give you some hints and tips on how to get that conversation started. So when exactly should you have that conversation? Here's the thing about grief. It can be like an ocean that you're walking alongside, and sometimes the waves come in and they stop short of your feet. And sometimes they come in and they wash up around your ankles, and you can feel the tug of the waves, but you can continue walking. And then there are times when the waves come crashing over your head and you honestly feel like you're going to drown. And the thing with the grief waves, the small ones and the big ones can be seconds apart, let alone hours, minutes or days. So at the point you ask someone what's happening with them today, you do not know what the answer is going to be, even if you ask the same question just a few minutes before, because grief can be that fast moving. So the first thing I'm going to say is you can't always get it right, but what we can do is get it slightly less wrong. And the worst thing of all is just not even trying, leaving people who are already feeling isolated even more isolated. So the only way to know if someone wants to talk about the person that died is ask, would you like to talk about? And then say their name. This is really important. People who've experienced bereavement are terrified that the person they care about will simply be forgotten. And then everyone around them avoids saying their name because they think it will cause hurt. And then we're in this negative cycle of fear and anxiety and pain. Break the cycle, say their name. So when you talk to your friend, whether it's in person or on the phone, say, would you like to talk about Jack, if Jack was their name? I'm going to use Jack throughout this so that it seems more natural that I'm using a real name. Obviously, you're intelligent enough to know you're not going to say Jack if the person who died wasn't called Jack. If by some coincidence it happened to be called Jack, great, it's already ingrained in your brain. So, remembering the waves, remember you can't always win, but be honest about how you maybe are struggling to find the right words. Say, I don't really know what to say right now, is a perfectly okay thing to say. But the most important thing is, first of all, we're going to say their name. Do you want to talk about Jack right now? If they say no, respect their wishes. If they do, the next most important thing you can do is shut up and listen. Yes, this is about them. Grief is not an illness. It's not them being faulty. It's not them being overreacting. It's them having a normal, natural response to their heart being broken. So when you're grieving, what you want is people to hear you. What they don't want is to be fixed or judged or interrupted, because they haven't got the energy. Grief is exhausting for any kind of argument. So listen without interrupting them. You can make little noises and that kind of thing to encourage them to keep talking, but you're not going to rush in and offer advice. You're not going to rush in and say, when whatever happened to you, you did X, because actually it's not about you right now. It's about them sharing what's going on with them. So listen, no advice, no fixing, no interrupting. Please try and avoid the platitudes like, it'll be okay in the end, in time, all that kind of stuff. Just know, because that's actually not helpful right now in this moment. So just listen. If you're physically present and you have that sort of relationship, offer them a hug. If you're on the phone and you would hug them in person, say, I'd really like to offer you a hug right now. Feel my hug down the phone. This sort of language of offering empathy, not sympathy, and not platitude is absolutely the way to go. So, okay. You've asked them if they want to talk about them, and maybe then spontaneously some stuff's come out, but maybe they're getting stuck, or you want to kind of shift the conversation or get them talking about what their life was like rather than what the death was like, because we can often get really stuck on the end. And you could ask things like, hey, what really made Jack laugh? Or what were the favourite things that you and Jack liked to do together? Or what's the most helpful thing you found someone has said or done since he died? That does two things. One, it gets them to share what they're grateful for, and two, gives you an idea of what they found helpful, and you could maybe do more of that. Ask them maybe what they miss most. So remember, they want to talk about that person. They want the opportunity to talk about fond memories and some painful stuff. Don't be scared of them showing their emotion through tears. I don't care if you're uncomfortable with tears. This ain't about you. This is about them. Have tissues handy. Offer tissues. Have tissues for yourself. If you join in, fine. But please, let's not make this about competitive grieving. If you're crying with empathy, fine. If you're having a full-on meltdown, that's become about you. Not fine. So, you're there for your friend. Share the experience. If you feel you've said something wrong, apologise once and then stop. Here's the thing. And I remember this vividly from when I was a newly widowed woman, after my husband had died. People would say something, decide they'd made a mistake, and then apologise profusely, and then you get all this tangle of explanations, and frankly, it was exhausting. Stupid things like, oh, I had this cheesecake out yesterday, it was to die for. Then they look at me and go, oh my God, I'm so sorry, and you're like, I really don't care, just stop now. When you're grieving, you're exhausted, you haven't got time to make your friend feel better about their gaffe. So if you make a gaffe, apologise, oh, I am so sorry, shouldn't have said that, or I'm so sorry that came out wrong, and then move on. Drop it. As they say, if you've dug a hole, stop digging and put the spade down. Walk round it and carry on. I hope you found some of these tips